See, you're here on a great night because apparently they've imposed Zen on the YouTube feed. Welcome to another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live, everybody. I'm JG Pasterjack. You're here on a fantastic night. It's a hot, sweaty, steamy night here in Ormond Beach. I'm going to do the thing I do at the beginning of every show. I'm going to ask everybody to do all of that social media stuff, like, share. If you're watching us over here on Facebook, let us know you're here. If you're watching us over there on YouTube, do the same thing. Subscribe to our feed, like our feed, massage our feed, put our feed into a sandwich and consume that sandwich. And we will be very, very appreciative of that. We got a great show tonight. We're going to be talking all about tire performance, heat versus pressure versus wear versus friction. All of those things that go into tire performance with our friend David Pralski from Chicken Hawk Racing. We're going to meet him in just a second. Before we do that, he's getting all excited. He barely made it here. He ran through the Charlotte airport to make this show. We're going to talk a little bit about, very quickly, the folks that make this show possible. Talking about CRC Industries online, crcindustries.com, even better, at a retailer near you. Grab some brake clean, grab some power lube, grab some freeze off. Coney Shocks, coney-na.com. From your tow vehicle to whatever you're towing with your tow vehicle, Coney has a shock for it. It's going to make that car perform better. And SPC Industries, Specialty Products Corporation, spcalignment.com on the web. Control arms, camber kits, anything to correct the direction your wheels are heading in and keep these tires flat on the ground. SPC has it, spcalignment.com on the web. Thanks very much to them. We got a couple of nice crowds forming, so let's get to it. David, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much.
David Podolsky, Chicken Hawk Racing. So you ran through the Charlotte airport to make it here.
Yes,
that
I did.
I am honored. I hope we can do justice tonight to some very cool products. But as we've been kind of talking about this show before, as we've been setting it up, and some very cool physics involved in tire performance, which is what we want to talk about tonight. And like you mentioned before, these are tools, but they're tools to do a very specific thing and to do a very important thing when we talk about the temperature and pressure of tires. So let's back up even before that. Tell us a little bit about Chicken Hawk Racing. What do you do? How'd you get into this whole crazy world of ours?
Okay, yeah, it's a good place to start. Chicken Hawk Racing, been around now 26 years.
Wow.
Started in 1993 because I was road racing motorcycles. And at that time, no tire warmers existed in the US. You had them in professional racing in Europe. And this is before the internet, okay? So you had to go to the library and pull out Thomas's register and find people who made thermostats and power cords and started building tire warmers. And that really, at that time, the joke was that I was the tire warmer evangelist because I was spreading the gospel of tire heating. People were not used to it. And really, it did start to catch on an awful lot in the 90s. And we've been doing it, we've been in part of 7 world championships. We've got customers like Red Bull Formula One. We've got customers all through SCCA and NASA and drag racing stuff. Kids who are racing go-karts in the dirt. It's everybody who's got a tire.
I'm not ignoring you to check my messages here. This was a photo I was showing Chris earlier, so we'll show them in a second. I should have emailed this to myself, but this is at the Nürburgring recently. This is at the 24 hours. So Chris, see if you can zoom on that and get a good picture. So that is what the tire management compound of a high-end multi-car race team looks like. And they are basically keeping those tires that are waiting to go onto a car at a very specific temperature, right. I'm sure at very specific pressures. So I guess, I'm not sure what the right question to ask here is, but why is temperature important to a tire? And I know that's a huge question because you're talking about every aspect of a tire from how the tread actually interfaces with the ground to what the air inside it is doing. But when we start to talk about tire temperature, why is that important? Why is it important to keep track of?
It might almost be better if we start just in how tires work.
Okay,
yeah. I mean, there's tires, the tire warmers, we've really developed a really specialized tool. It's got a specialized heating element and the insulations we use and the temperature control. But as I said, no one cares about tire warmers. People care about tires. People care about getting performance out of their tires. They care about not crashing their car, and they care about the tires lasting longer. So let's talk about how do tires work?
Right.
How do tires make grip? Tires make grip 3 ways. Okay, we've got adhesion, we've got mechanical keying, and we've got basically wear and tear. So adhesion, it's coefficient of friction. The fact rubber's kind of sticky anyway. It's that instant molecular bond that it makes as they come in contact with each other. You can imagine a block of rubber sitting on a sheet of glass and putting a weight on it, and then you say, well, I have to slide this thing. And it's going to take a certain amount of force to break that inertia and get it to slide. And that's the adhesion part of it, okay? Then we've got mechanical keying. Well, even if it's a really flat racetrack, there's all sorts of nooks and crannies in the asphalt. And the softer the rubber is, the more it fills those nooks and crannies and sort of gets more contact patch, actually. You can imagine a tire that was in a freezer. If it wasn't going to be soft at all, it would sit on top of the bumps of the racetrack rather than filling all the little nooks and crannies that we have in the track surface.
So you're actually talking about beyond just the friction of sliding two surfaces across each other, as those surfaces become irregular, those surfaces forming into each other.
That's exactly right. Because a softer tire will fill those little voids in the asphalt and get this sort of mechanical keying where they're locked into each other. Okay, so the softer rubber, it's going to do that better. And then of course there's wear and tear. As the tire is elastic, so now it's got some adhesion and it's also got some mechanical keying, and now we're putting a load on it. And the tire is stretching, literally stretching to its limit. And of course we do go beyond its limit. We go beyond its limit and we slough off little pieces of rubber that end up as the marbles on the outside of the racetrack. I mean, we all see that. And that's sort of getting beyond the elasticity of the tire. So wear and tear is sort of the third component.
And as I'm kind of thinking about these things, I'm seeing that you can make a tire infinitely soft, but then you're giving those three things are almost a trade-off to each other, because you can have fantastic mechanical keying, but you're going to generate a lot of motion in the structure of that tire, which is going to come.
Sure. I mean, we can make a tire that's a qualifying tire, and it'll be really soft and work great for 2 laps, and that's all it's good for, right? I mean, but that's not something that's going to last our race distance, and if we're club racing, we want tires to last us a little bit longer than that. Okay,
so that's how they work. So let's so Anthony says, so new pavement is bad. Well, anybody that's autocrossed on different surfaces knows that there is a different feel to a blacktop surface versus a concrete surface versus maybe a coated concrete surface.
Different asphalt, depending on the aggregate, actually can have different shapes. Some of it can actually be sharp, so you can go to one track and find it to be really abrasive, that it has great grip and also eats the crap out of your tire.
Yeah.
That you need a harder compound for that surface, even if the surface is level. It just depends on what it is. Years ago, Bridgehampton Raceway in Long Island, they used seashells in the aggregate. Fantastic grip. I mean, it was just because it was one of the parts of the thing that was in the actual aggregate.
Hey, keep going, Katie.
So so now we're talking about adhesion. We're talking about mechanical keying. We're talking about wear and tear. So how does that relate to tire temperature? How does that relate to these types of things? Well, your tire is really the first damper. It's your first suspension component. As there's a bump or a dip or anything else, your tire, as you go ahead and roll off the gas and slam on the brakes, your tire gets deformed. Okay, so is the carcass stiff? Is the rubber soft? What pressure are we at? This is obviously going to make a really big difference in how it handles. Then we go into the turn and we've got lateral load. And of course we come out of the turn, we're on the gas, and now we're driving on the tire. So all of these components of the tire being at temperature make a big difference. A warmer tire, when people say, how do you use a tire warmer?
And actually, let's back up, because you mentioned something that I want to stress even further, is that your tires are like an entirely separate suspension system.
That's right.
From your suspension. I mean, this is basically a tire is basically a pneumatic spring. And if any of my FMOD friends are watching, my Formula 500 gang, you know that most of your tuning is since you have no springs, most of your tuning is done through these. So you've got essentially all of the moments from your suspension in here. You've got compression, you've got rebound.
That's right.
You've got deformation going one side or the other. So it kind of underscores the importance of getting this right to begin with, because there's a lot of stuff going on here.
To get more grip, we would use softer rubber. It would then fill the voids better and have better mechanical keying. We'd use lower tire pressure. The tire would have a bigger footprint. We'd have a bigger contact patch. but we also have to make sure, as you're saying, as part of its suspension component,
Right.
you know, we have hysteresis, right? When we crush it, it returns. That's due to the air pressure inside the tire. And if you just put your fingernail into any tire, we know that the rubber compound itself does the same thing. Well, what we want to do with the tire warmer is get the tire into the condition it's going to be on the racetrack anyway. We're not trying to pick a magic temperature. We want the temperature that you're going to achieve on the racetrack if you didn't have a tire warmer. Because what we want to try to do is make sure that that rubber's at the right temperature, and we want to try to make sure the pressure is at the hot pressure when you first start out. When you leave your pits, you should already have your hot pressure set.
So, give me some general numbers. If I've never done this before, I'm starting off with a brand new tire. I don't know what the ideal temperatures for these tires are. How do I develop a strategy to start thinking about
So I'm
finding
still going to
an
do this. I'm
ideal
going to
place?
back you all the way up to the very beginning. You get a brand new set of tire warmers from Chicken Hawk Racing, and you're so excited. And you go, what am I going to do with these things? Well, a lot of guys actually put a scrub lap on their tires before they race. They'll do that a day before. They'll do it a few days before. You can put a heat cycle, a gentle heat cycle on your tires before you ever leave for the track. So you go ahead and you take the tire warmers, you'd put them on the way we have them mounted up here, nice and flat and smooth around your tire. You'd go ahead, you'd set your digital temperature controller at 175 degrees. 175 puts every race tire in its operating window, and there's no chance to exceed that. You know, I mean, there's no chance that that's too hot for any rubber we're going to have. So you'd let it run for an hour.
Which is actually what I'm going to be doing tonight with these, since they just came back from the mounter and they're going to Daytona this weekend. So
oh, that's great.
Yeah. So when I'm heat cycling them, what's actually happening to the rubber? Why is that good?
It's so complex. You know, the tire companies really give us a small piece of the information. I mean, it's such a competitive market worldwide. They really don't like to share a lot. But the first thing we're trying to do is all the molecules. What is heat? All the molecules just start moving really fast, and they kind of settle into each other, and they go through a little bit of a process, because when you get a race tire, unlike a street tire for your car that's supposed to go 50,000 miles, this tire's not completely vulcanized, meaning it's not been baked in the oven long enough to really be fully cured, okay? So by putting that gentle heat cycle on it, not only are you getting this molecular kind of settling, where things kind of settle in, also there's a lot of chemicals in the tire that get active when they get hot. Now, it's such a big topic. Tires, we could talk about this for a month. But if you think about it, 20 years ago, no one set the fastest lap of the race at the end of the race. Now you can, okay? It didn't happen because the chemicals in the tire now get active when the tire gets hot, and they do things that cross-link. So when long chains of molecules break, they actually rejoin and connect again. They become chemically active, just like oxygen wants to be O2 instead of O1. These things want to link up again. So by putting that gentle heat cycle on the tire, you make the tire more durable. You're not changing the compound. You still have the same compound rubber that you had before, but you're putting that gentle heat cycle on it, and now it's a little more durable, ready for your race. So you put that gentle heat cycle on the tire. I'd run it for an hour, right? Let it get up to temperature, run it for an hour. I'd let it cool with the tire warmer on. I'd unplug it.
So it's cooling at a slower rate.
I would cool it at a slower rate all the time. We'll talk about that at the end as we go through this sort of chronological, how do I use a tire warmer? I would unplug it and I would let it cool down. I'd probably let it cool for an hour. Okay, heat it up for an hour, I'd let it cool for an hour, and then I would take that to the racetrack. So now we go ahead and it's race day. Go ahead.
Hold that thought, I gotta pay some bills. Chris, you ready? Ready for our new thing? Hey everybody, this portion of Grassroots Motorsports Live is presented by Coney. Coney! See, now I'm so excited that we actually did that I don't know what to say. If you need shocks for your tow vehicle, for whatever your tow vehicle is towing, for your daily driver, for your track car, for your competition car, Coney's got them. Coney-na.com on the web or at great retailers like Tire Rack. Wasn't that exciting, everybody? Back to David over here, because I am fascinated. I'm so excited we pulled that off, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've heat cycled these tires.
Yep.
So tell me the difference between heat cycling a tire through friction and heat cycling a tire through sort of passive heating like this, or active static heating, I guess you would call it.
Doing it on the tire warmer obviously saves you some track time, that's for sure. And doing it with the tire warmer at home, just a nice, controlled, gentle way to do it. If you look at the surface temperature of your tire, you really don't want to shock it. You'd rather bring it up to temperature nice and slow, which the tire warmer can do. When you plug the tire warmer in and you say, I've set it at 175 degrees, how long will it take for it to reach that? Probably about 18 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's, I think we plugged these in about 10 after 8, and by 8:45, 8:55, they were coming up to their final temperature.
So compared to going out and putting it through, let's say a lap is a minute and a half, you're going to say, well, I got the surface temperature of my tire up in 2 laps. So instead of doing it by stretching and kind of abusing the cold tire, because honestly, you're asking it to stretch and be elastic when it's cold.
Right.
I understand it's room temperature. I mean, even if it's 90 degrees, it ain't 190. Okay, so it's not as elastic. So when you see bad graining and tearing on tires, it's because of, putting them through a lot of abuse when they're still essentially cold. So by doing it with a tire warmer, it's the safest, most controlled thing you could do.
And actually, so let's go over and take a look at some of these. So this is BF Goodrich Rival. This is our autocross setup, basically. So these things never see enough temperature almost, unless you're at a test day or something. So you're always going out there at basically ambient temp or a little bit above. And these don't have a ton of miles on them, but you actually are starting to see some of that graining you're talking about in there.
Yep.
Not bad, but that's definitely some of the more common where you see it in an autocross tire, because rarely are you getting an autocross tire up to temperature. You're doing it very quickly. You're doing it through a lot of friction, and the types of rapid heating and cooling they go through, versus this tire, which has just been used for track time trials, which to me looks like it's got fairly good wear.
Good wear on it.
No real dramatic temperature based wear on that. So what else besides the graining? What else do we see with improper tire temps as far as wear goes?
Well, I mean, if we want to, biggest thing we're really trying to do, I mean, what are we trying to accomplish with the tire warmer? Guys think about it and go, well, it's like a go fast tool. It's a tool that's going to let me beat my competitor because I'm going to be able to go harder than him on the first lap. Okay, I guess that's definitely true. If your tire is going to be warm and at proper temperature, the rubber is going to be softer, it's going to have more adhesion, it's going to have better coefficient of friction, the mechanical keying is going to be better, and really, most importantly, you're at pressure. But let's talk again about what do I do race day, right? What do I start out race day? So now it's race day, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. What am I going to do? You're going to set your cold pressures on your tires, meaning you want to make sure you have enough pressure in the tire cold that once we put the warmer on and the pressure goes up, we want to really exceed your target temperature for hot. So if you said, I want to go out at 36, you're going to make sure you had 30, 32, something that you're going to make sure that when you let that tire get hot, that you're going to be able to exceed that. So your practice is going to be in an hour and a half. I would say an hour and a half is ideal to let the tire get warm. Mm-hmm. Set it at a temperature that you think you're going to be at on the track. Now, maybe you've taken tire temperatures before. Maybe you have no idea where you're starting. If you have no idea where you're starting, you could start at 175, 185 degrees, okay? So we go ahead and we take the tire warmer, put it on. Ideally, you'd heat it up off the car. Okay, if you really had your way, you would put one of our side discs on the floor, and then you'd put your wheel on it, and you'd wrap it with the warmer, and you'd stack them all up, just like you saw this way. This way, the rims themselves are inside. You don't see anything but tire warmers. You don't see tires, you don't see rims, because we really want to get some heat into the rim.
Well, and I'm guessing what happens is this is a giant aluminum heat sink here, basically.
Oh yeah, sure. So let me just go through that. How are we going to do it on race day? So you set them at 185 degrees. You ran them for 90 minutes. You come over and go, hey, your practice is in 5 minutes. You bleed the pressure down to what you want. Okay, so you're going to bleed it down. Let's say in this case we're saying 36. Take the warmers off. Go out on track. Do your stint. Come back in. It's very difficult to have someone be right there to take tire temperatures. Yeah. Very, very difficult. Number one, you should never really use an infrared for that. You should have a probe if you were going to do it at all. But it would mean on your last lap, your cool-off lap, that you didn't cool down.
Right.
It meant you did it as hard as you did all the other laps, which usually the racing organization
You were that guy.
wants you to slow down.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to have somebody right there to check them. So what we say is check your pressure instead. It'll take 4 or 5 minutes for you to lose a pound. So you can come off the track, come over, and check your tire pressure off the track and say, did I go up or down from 36?
And so,
What are you at now?
well, so I was kind of fascinated. I've been doing this for 30 years. You'd think I would know this stuff better, but I started these tires out at 30 pounds at ambient temperature, which was about 85 degrees, and at 175 degrees of surface temperature now, we're up to just a little above 35 pounds. So
Yep.
that's 15% practically.
Yeah.
I realized there was a pressure gain with temperature. Didn't realize it was that dramatic.
No, for sure. So if you went ahead and said, okay, we set this at 175 degrees, we went out on track with 36 pounds, you come back in, did you gain pressure or did you lose? If you gain pressure, you gain temperature. If you lost, then you lost. And so imagine in this situation, you say, wow, we went up to 38. We went up to 38 pounds. I don't want to be at 38 pounds. I want to be hot 36. Well, if you set your warmer at 175 and you came back with more pressure, you gain temperature on track. Now why don't you go out and set it at 190? Set your warmer at 190 degrees and see what happens next time. Maybe at 190, you go out at 36 and you come back at 36, which is the goal. You want it to be that you left your pits with your hot pressure already set and that you saw no change out on track. Yeah. Now, if you come back in and your practice is over and you go, well, we're going to go back out in an hour, hour and a half, just put the warmers right back on. Don't let the tire heat cycle. Heat cycling tires is what kills the tires, okay? When the tire's hot, all these chemicals are in the tire, everything's nice and moving. When you let that thing cool down, all those chemicals and everything migrate right up to the surface, okay? You see the circle track guys grinding the tires, grinding this stuff off, okay? So you keep the tire hot, you do your session, come back in, keep the tire hot. But now let's say it's lunch and you go, well, geez, we're not till a late in the afternoon race. We've got 3 or 4 hours. No reason to leave the tire warmer at 190. You can turn it down to 130, 125, something warm enough just not to let that tire heat cycle. Now you'd sit there at 125, 130, maybe 45 minutes before the race because you've already got some warmth in it. You're going to bump the thing back up to 190, go out and do your race.
So where's our bottom floor if we're talking about not wanting a tire to heat cycle completely? Are we talking about it not returning back to ambient, or is there kind of a magic lower limit? For
Meaning how
tires?
low can you go?
Right.
You might be able to go down to 110, but you know, every tire is a little different. If you watched all the different manufacturers make their tires, they're more different than you'd believe.
Yeah.
They look black and round and you think they're all the same, but they're more different. So for every tire, for every compound, there would be a number that would be the right number. But 125, you could leave it there for a very long time with no issues, you know?
See, we've got a question coming in. Okay, so we have a question about different media inside the tire for temperature and pressure.
Meaning
gain.
running
So
nitrogen
you're
versus
gonna run
ambient?
nitrogen, yeah.
That's a really valid point. We look at a pressure increase and we'll usually count on wanting something predictable. I mean, that's really it. You know, 77% of the air we're breathing is nitrogen. So it's not that you don't have nitrogen in your tires when you put in regular air, but what you don't want to do is have moisture. If you have a compressor that's spitting a few droplets of moisture in, then you get some very inconsistent numbers.
Well, and just like you feel here, I mean, if I'm compressing air here in the east coast of Florida, it's going to be a lot higher moisture content than it is for you in New York right now.
It's definitely true. I mean, you want to try. I mean, you guys have tire drying systems, right? There's some that are very elaborate, and you can spend a lot of money running tire dryers. But it is better to run nitrogen if you can, just to make sure you get a consistent rise. That's really the truth. You're going to get a rise, but you can be predictable knowing I went from 85 degrees to 190 and I gained, you know, this 20%. I went from 30 to 36.
Gotcha.
And predictability is what we want all the time.
So just seeing if we missed any questions. And
Sure.
somebody Stampy, good job, 78% nitrogen.
Instead of 77?
We have a friendly but very pedantic crew So we have some folks asking about wheel temperature and how that relates to things. We're skipping around a little bit, but we've actually put a temp probe on the rear wheel, and we've fully encased that one. Why is monitoring these wheel temperatures important?
Okay, the higher up we seem to work, we as I said, we work with guys that are racing go-karts in the dirt and their kids. We got guys that are, just started out and they're doing different types of autocross events, and we have guys that are involved in world championship racing. The higher the professionalism is in racing, the more they're paying attention to hot pressures. Tire pressures are just that much more of a key, and they separate different racers from their performance. And one of the components is not just the tire, it's the rim. The rim getting hot through braking forces and from the tire being hot is one of the real reasons we're getting an increase. So if we were trying to be as careful as we could be to send our driver out on track with a tire completely stable, we would make sure that the rim was as hot as it was going to be on track. Now, different cars, different tracks, you're not always going to have the same rim temperature, but we want to get some temperature into the rim to make sure that the whole thing is what we call heat soaked. So if we take a look, I've plugged this little temperature gauge in, and we've got a little thermocouple taped onto the rim, and we're sitting here right now with a 101 degree wheel. Honestly, I'd like to see that be hotter. It should be hotter, because you're going to get hotter on track. You really would. You're going to get hotter on track. And obviously, it would depend on how much somebody brakes and how much braking there is, hard braking at that track.
And I'm thinking of how many forces are fighting each other here. You want a certain amount of temperature in your tire, but then that wheel acting as a heat sink is trying to suck temperature out of that tire to some extent.
Sure.
But that wheel is working as a heat sink from the other direction, getting a lot of heat from the brakes, from the hubs.
The brakes, yeah.
And it's going out to the tire. So if I'm warming up a set of tires, let's say I didn't have the advantage of these, which are, I want to sleep with that in November now. I think that's fantastic. But is there a proper way to warm a set of tires through friction that is maybe less impactful than any other? I mean, is it just the jerking the car back and forth on the pace lap? Is braking and accelerating better maybe?
I mean, if you didn't have warmers,
yeah.
Boy, you're going to have a hard time.
You don't want to talk to anybody.
No, but you're going to have a hard time. If you really were just sitting there swerving back and forth, you're really not going to put very much temperature in the tire. It's just not enough load. I mean, think of the load you really put in when you're braking it for turn one, and how much cornering force you're putting on.
And how much longer those.
Oh, so much longer. Yes, sweeping back and forth. I mean, I guess you do it if you had no other choice, but you're not going to get very much heat in a tire. I mean, imagine how much you'd have to drive to go from 30 pounds to 36 pounds by doing that. There's no real load on the tire.
Yeah, whereas if you're in one long corner, you're in a corner for 4, 5, 6 seconds at a time versus those momentary inputs. I've often kind of felt that the weaving back and forth was just as much to warm this up as it is the tire.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, the other place that you make real temperature in a tire, aside from deforming the tire under braking, cornering, and acceleration, is spinning the tire. I mean, that's when you see a lot of heat going into the tire for like guys in dirt track.
Right.
You think, well, how are they getting so much heat in the tire? It's because they're spinning the tire as well.
So you're actually when you're spinning a tire, you're not just introducing friction that's lateral friction and carcass deflection. You actually have like that over the road.
That's right.
Grinding friction. So you're introducing all three of you've broken your mechanical linking, but you've maximized your friction and
right.
your wear and tear.
You'd
basically.
think that maybe it wouldn't be as important in the dirt, but we have a lot of guys in late model stock cars and in go-karts in the dirt, even guys that have been doing flat track motorcycles in the dirt. Every supercross team has our tire warmers. Motorcycle, indoor motocross.
Even in the dirt.
Even in the dirt.
That's amazing. Okay, take a break. I got to pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to measure some hardness on some of these because I'm curious about that. And this portion of Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries, is presented by CRC Industries. Ladies and gentlemen, CRC Industries has the chemicals you need for whatever you need to do to your car. You need to clean your brakes. You need to lubricate something. You need to clean your throttle body or carburetor. CRC has it Go to the store, buy some, check them out online, crcindustries.com. Even better, check them out at a retailer near you. And coming up in October, the Grassroots Motorsports $2,000 Challenge presented by CRC Industries hits Gainesville Raceway. We love them for more than just making fantastic automotive chemicals. We love them for supporting great events like that and being a part of our community. So check them out online, or even better, in a store near you. Back to the show, everybody. Done that twice in a row, and it's worked. Let's see if we got any questions we've missed.
We did have one guy who was asking if there's an issue, anything bad that can come of keeping your tires hot all day.
Okay, and we actually had I saw it before it scrolled off there. Great comment from our friend John Rastetter, long time. David, what did John Rastetter do at Tire Rack? He was
everything.
Yeah, he was the guy at Tire Rack. So he was asking about or commenting on the fact that heat cycling is more than just about adding heat. It can be about adding friction too, and almost physically massaging those molecules
Sure.
into place. So is there a balance I should be looking for? I would imagine that properly heat cycling a tire through heat is going to help me out with long-term wear characteristics of that tire to begin with,
You
because
mean like
you're
putting on the heat cycle before you use the tire?
right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would the right order, if I was going to do both those things, I should do static heating first and then my active heating. And
We found that every tire, we've only found one strange Kumo that didn't seem to react well to being heated on the warmer and then having it sort of be prepared for the track. The Kumo seemed to only really want to be used on the track. It needed to be physically manipulated and go through deformation on track. All the other tires that we've worked with, we haven't really had an issue like that. There was only that one model of Kumo. We were working with the Naked Racing team, Scotty White and Cindy Lux back then.
Yeah, Cindy and Fred.
And they were having a little bit of a strange time with that. But I don't know, they were running some special Kumos at that time. But no, putting that heat cycle on helps them. The one thing, I just want to finish, the one thing we talked at the very end, we were talking about how to use the warmer throughout the day.
Right.
Putting the warmer on an hour before, saving heat cycles, and then, maybe turning it down before the main event, and then, of course, going out and doing your race. When you come back from your race, and it's the end of the day, let's say it's Sunday at 5 o'clock, everything's done, could be Saturday at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You should put the warmer back on the hot tire. Don't energize it. Just use it as an insulating blanket and let that thing cool down for an hour.
At a lower rate than it would.
No
exposed,
energized. Just let it cool slow. Because when you came off the track Sunday at 5 o'clock, your tire looked great. The car was working great, tire looked great. But now, a couple days later, tire doesn't look the same, does it? You've got a haze on that tire. Depending on the brand, it's either like a chalky haze or it's like a blue haze, an oily looking thing that comes out of it. And those are all these chemicals and oils that are in the tire. Okay, you got about 30% of that tread rubber is waxes and oils. And that stuff will migrate up to the surface. And if you use that tire on Saturday and you're going to use it again on Sunday, you kind of got to scrub that off out on track before the tire is going to work again. If you put that warmer on at the end of the day and let it cool slow, just as a blanket, no energy, no electricity, that tire will look like it came off the track 10 minutes ago, a week later.
It sounds like what we're talking about in a lot of cases here is sort of minimizing thermal shock, we want to get these tires to a certain temperature. We just don't want it to happen too fast or to be released too fast. And the more sort of progressive and gentle we can change these temperatures, the better.
And it really is true. You're absolutely right, because although it's a mechanical thing, a piece of rubber, and we're talking about the grip in the track and the physics of these mechanics, the chemistry's where it's really gotten complicated over the years. And there's more and more chemicals that get active. That's why guys why are they taking dirt bikes on indoor arenas and using tire warmers? Because they need to get the heat in it to get the chemicals to fire. They haven't fired until they get hot.
And it sounds like, if it sounds like splitting hairs a little bit, maybe it is, but we're also talking about sports that are timed to the thousandth of a second.
Yeah, no,
where thousand, and anything you can do to affect some of those thousandths can matter. Okay.
Well, let me ask that other guy's question. Can you
Yeah.
leave the tire warmer on too long?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? He was worried about, what that type of thing, right? Can you leave it on too long? Yeah, you could. When you vulcanize a tire in a factory, they're doing it at much higher temperatures than the operating temperatures. But you wouldn't want to leave a tire warmer on your tire for a month. That'd be like putting a turkey in the oven at 150 degrees and just leaving it there. It is slowly cooking it. But throughout the course of the day, if you had one set of tires that you heat cycled multiple times with no warmers, and another set of tires that you never let cool off, you left them on the warmers either at operating temperature or lower, and you saved heat cycles, you'll find that tire is going to last you a lot longer.
And so Glenn's asking about. Okay, so he's basically asking about this being related to like doing a burnout, where you're heating the tire from the outside in versus being on track. You're still, I mean, you might be creating some heat inside the tire on track, but most of your heat is coming from your tread face, whether it be on track or with the blankets on, right? Yeah,
I mean, we've had really good success in drag racing. Okay, we have a lot of guys that do the 1 mile races, where it's just a standing mile. And in Top Fuel motorcycle, the world record holder, Larry McBride, at under 6 seconds, quarter mile, 243 miles an hour, used our warmers. And really the biggest difference, okay, it's consistency. Okay, it's not that you can't put heat into a tire with a burnout, but if you had 10 guys do 10 burnouts and you checked their temperatures, not only would they really not be that consistent, but you're not going to get the heat through the carcass. Now the sidewall and the carcass being warm changes how pliable that is, and it really added a lot of consistency for him. He said his 100-foot times were just so much more consistent.
And when you're launching a 6-second motorcycle, you want it to be the same every single time,
exactly.
basically.
Sure.
So, all right, let's talk about your chart here a little bit, because I said before, David is probably the best prepared guest we have ever had as far as the visual aids here. So I want to give a shout out to the chart, which is I was kind of reading it over before, and it seemed shocking to me, and then I started taking pressures off of these tires and realizing, how sort of uninformed I was on temperature pressure relationships. So what are we actually looking at?
What we're looking at a graph of time, and we're looking at temperature, and then we're looking at tire pressure. Okay, so we've got a few different probes that we put on the tire. We had a couple of them that were just on the surface of the tire, and that was this red one and the blue one. And you can kind of see we started out at maybe 77 degrees, and the tire surface temperature came up, and really kind of, the first time you're going to see this thing kind of get to where it's at full temperature is just about here at about 20 minutes. So the surface temperature, gets there in about 20 minutes. But that's not the whole story. Obviously, we care about the carcass. So 1/8 into the rubber, we have another probe that's down into the rubber, and you can see it follows a similar arc, but it took a lot longer. We really didn't get that carcass all the way warm until about 55 minutes for the heat to really penetrate in, because rubber, well, it's not really that thermally conductive. It's pretty much an insulator. And then we also had a probe that went through the valve stem into the rim, okay, that was now touching the tire from the inside. And you sort of see the same kind of pattern. This is going to follow the same thing, but you're really looking at, before this is going to get stable, you really want it to be at about 55 minutes. For the whole carcass to really get the heat to penetrate into the rubber.
So this is kind of amazing here, because if I go out and run 2 or 3 laps and then take tire temperatures off, they're kind of bullcrap at that point, because I've just been essentially heating the outside of that tire, and I went out for a 10-minute session. I'm not even heating the entire 360 degrees of the tire on track. I'm heating just the contact patch, multiple times a second, obviously. But if 360 degrees of contact takes that long to get the internal structure of the tire up temperature, how long does it take it on track?
I mean, if you went out on track and ran a lap, you're not going to gain 6 pounds of pressure in one lap. That's not going to happen. You're going to need more time for that whole carcass to get warm and to get heat soaked and to get the wheel warm and all the rest of it to really bring it up to temperature. And you have to feel that seat of the pants. I mean, seat of the pants, you feel the outside rubber getting warm. You start to feel some grip coming in, but that tire is not completely stable yet. I mean, you don't want to be braking as hard as you can for turn 1 until that thing's really at the right pressure. And you really want to take some time for that. And that's the last part of the component here. Here we sort of start out, we see that we started out at 30 pounds of pressure. That's our purple line. And not that much happened in the first 10 minutes, but then we started to gain, and then we can see that we kind of got stable out here again at about 60 minutes, and we got up to 36. seeing about a 20% rise is about what you want to see to know that that thing's stable. And you know, so if you had your tire warmer on, it was a windy day, and you see that you didn't have the discs covering it, and you see you didn't gain that pressure, that tire's not hot all the way through.
Losing a ton of heat. Let me
Yep.
get to a couple questions here.
Sure.
We're skipping around a little bit, but I've had a couple people ask about bluing on tires. We talked about a lot of the chemicals that are in there.
Yep.
We see in heavily worn tires, you start to get some of that sort of almost petroleum rainbow
Yep.
bluing effect on the edges. Is that the petroleum distillates in the tire coming
Yep.
to the surface, basically?
You know, we call it, like, I'll call it activators. It's all these oils and waxes and chemicals they put in the tire. I consider it like the lifeblood of the tire. You don't want that on the surface. You want that back in the rubber. And that's one of the reasons to save the heat cycles, okay? Because you'll stop that from migrating up to the surface. And that's why at the end of the day, you want to leave the tire warmer on and let it just cool, unenergized, and let that thing cool down.
Okay, and somebody asked about wrapping tires, using like you know, a UV stable saran wrap almost.
And then using what for heat?
Folks doing that. Well, not necessarily heating them, but once you're back home, once everything's done, any advantage to, I don't know, like essentially putting the tire in a giant Ziploc like I would with a ham sandwich, or
I mean, I haven't been racing for about 5 or 7 years now, but all my tires were sitting in the basement in black garbage bags.
Okay.
Okay. Now, did the distributor keep them in black garbage bags? No, he didn't. Okay. I know, but you know that if you left a tire out, a brand new tire, it's slowly drying. Okay, and you don't really want that, and you certainly don't want it in the sun. Okay, I've seen guys make the mistake of leave their rain tires holding down their canopies on a nice hot sunny day, baking their rain tires in the sun. No, they should be at room temperature in black garbage bags. Wrapping a tire can't be bad. But you see the date codes. You know if you're getting a tire that's really old or not, right? You have week and year stamped on all the tires, and you'd rather get the freshest stuff you can. But once you get it, keeping it fresh, that certainly can't be a bad idea.
I have some of my ice racing friends asking questions now. I don't even. Well, have you ever dealt with that? Like, is there? How do you manage? This is obviously interesting to a very narrow set of people, but it is kind of fascinating that there is probably a desired temperature range for an ice racing tire as well. I would think. You have any knowledge?
I have to profess ignorance.
You want to speculate on that?
No. I mean, of course, the same issues of having the right type of pressure and some carcass deformation to give you grip. But if you're using screws, it's a little different.
I would think, and I would almost think that the maybe like the signal to noise ratio of there's a lot of other things going on dynamically between an ice racing tire and the ice that they're going to affect that. All right, I'm going to do my last commercial. Then we're going to unwrap these babies, and I want to take some measurements off of some of these tires and see what we've actually done to these. This portion of Grassroots Motorsports Live is brought to you by SPC Industries. SPC Industries. Why am I so close now? If you need control arms, if you need camber adjusters, if you need roll center correctors, if you need camber correctors for the rear of your Honda, SPC has them. Specialty Performance, Specialty Products Company, spcalignment.com on the web. If you're building an SSC car, Solo Spec Coupe, out of a BRZ or an FRS, you're going to be very, very familiar with their catalog because they have all the pieces you need practically to complete that car. I've used them myself on our 350Z project car. Big fan of their camber and caster adjusting upper control arms. Check them out on the web at spcalignment.com. And that was officially the last commercial. Let's finish up here. So let's let's talk a little. We've talked a lot about mechanical grip and the pliability of the rubber. We have some durometers here. We have an intercomp durometer here, and actually you had this one shipped here, and I like this one a lot. Actually, this was I think like the second cheapest one on Amazon, basically, but it works really, really well. And so does our intercomp, analog versus digital. But when we're measuring tire hardness or softness, what are we looking for? How much does this matter, basically?
Well, I mean, of course.
What can this tell us?
I mean, we talked about the fact that we are going to have, when the rubber's going to be warm, when the rubber is really at operating temperature, not only are we going to increase its coefficient of friction, right, that how much it's going to grip in terms of if it was to be sliding, but we're also going to find the mechanical keying, and that's really a big deal. So we're going to find that the rubber is going to be softer when it's at temperature. I mean, we all know what happened on track without the warmer, okay? But obviously the tire warmer is getting you in that condition ahead of time, and now it's going to be more elastic. We all know you took a rubber band out of the freezer, you're going to stretch it and break it. Take it out of a nice warm oven, it's going to be able to stretch. And it's the same thing. That's why the tire, you're treating the tire a lot nicer by having it go out onto the track warm than having it go out on the track cold. And of course, by saving the heat cycles on it, we're going to have it last longer too. But go ahead, let's take a look and see how hard they are.
So we've got, let's start up here. This is a brand new R1S, just got mounted today. This is from the same batch. So obviously they're different tires. There could be some differences just in the inherent structure of the tires, but
same model, same brand.
Same model, same brand. I'm not going to make these folks wait around for 90 minutes while we do this. So here, I'll use yours. You use mine. We'll see what we get. So I'm getting 60.
Yeah,
60. Well, it takes a second to settle. So
yeah,
if we wait before it starts poking in, I'm getting like 66.
Yeah, I got 65.
Okay, so we'll do the whole
65. That one came up 60. That's a little funny. Oh no, 67. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm getting like 65 and a half.
Yeah.
Versus index on my arm's 12. So so let's see what a fully warmed tire is. Get the blanket off in here. We'll at least get surface temperature here with our zap gun. So that's 179 degrees of surface temperature.
Which is really, right now we're showing 176. And usually you'll find a little bit more temperature at the top than the bottom just simply because heat rises.
Wow.
What do we got?
I got 49.
That's pretty good. I got 54.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting
56.
52, 51.
I got 50.
50 on the inside. Come right to the grippy shoulder, 45 out there. So I would say, let's say we got an average like 48 versus low 60. So we're looking at 15, 18% difference in the actual hardness of the carcass. This is fascinating. So let's take a look next at, let's look at the old R1 back here. So here.
Why don't we just see where we're at for pressure again? You have a gauge?
I do.
Let's take a look and see where we're at for pressure. We started at 30 cold or ambient, right?
36.
Okay, and that's what I would expect. Okay, I'd always expect, just like on my graph, you go from 30 to 36, I'd always look for that kind of 20% increase to show that the tire has now been soaked.
Wandered away from this thing. Okay, so let's next take a look. I'm very curious to see what the old tire has done. So this is a set of R1s that's been through at least a dozen heat cycles.
Okay.
And let's see, so 63, 58 there in the middle, but I think I hit a pocket. 62, 61.
Hasn't hardened up too bad.
It has not hardened up too bad at all.
No.
So let's see what an old tire.
And let's just say that now your rim temperature is at 107.
Okay.
I would expect to get this up to about 110, but to tell you the truth, you'll probably see higher temperatures on a rim coming off the track.
So I'm seeing 42s, 43s. So
wow.
Percentage-wise, not I think I'm hitting some rocks in there. Yeah, there's a 48. So yeah, we're seeing softer than that, but a little bit less of a difference on some heat cycle tire, but still 10%, 10, 12%.
Right.
So let's look at our 200 treadwear tires now. Zero this out. So these are, I would say of any of these tires, these probably see the most abuse because of the shock of heat cycles that they go through. So we're seeing 67s, 68, 67, 68. See what our intercom gauge tells us. Yeah, 67, 66, 68-ish.
But it's a little tough because here you're looking at a totally different tire.
Right.
You know, it's not like we're saying this tire is the same tire and now what is it hot? And then we're comparing, at least we're doing apples to apples.
Right, but we have a rival over here on this side, and we'll see what see where this has gotten us to. So we're about 175 degrees of surface temperature there, which is probably beyond the real happy range of these tires anyway. But we'll see what, yes, comparison. Yeah, we're 40, 49, 49 and a half, 48 and a half, 49, 48, 50. So 18%, no, actually closer to 20, 25%.
Yeah.
That, so.
I mean, we definitely have guys that are using the warmers for autocross. The problem they have there is some of them don't have a way to get their car in the air.
Yeah.
So we have built warmers for them that have a section that's marked blue, and it is where the contact patch is, and they basically roll the car onto the warmers.
Okay.
And then wrap them, and so they're heating most of it, but they cannot put the heating element under the area that's supporting the weight of the car. I mean, you could, but it would wear it out over time.
So how much heat am I losing in contact with the ground with a stationary tire? Is the ground just acting as a giant heat sink, especially if I'm on like cold concrete?
Sure, I mean it is. But I mean, so you're saying after you take the warmer out and before
Yeah.
you start your event, everyone wishes you could take your tire warmer off and then just have, you know, the green flag fly. Everyone wishes that. But no one gets that. Everyone has to wait 5 minutes. And you know what? Waiting 5 or 10 minutes, it's fine. Because although you're losing a lot of surface temperature as you sit, if you've heat soaked the tire, there's heat in the carcass and there's heat in the rim. So even in F1, they have to wait. You know, if, just like I always make a joke, you take the turkey out of the oven and yeah, the surface temperature is coming off like crazy. You could watch the surface temperature drop, but the meat thermometer's not changing a whole lot. And that's why checking the pressure coming off track, it's not such an emergency. You can come off track, roll through the paddock in a safe way, get to your pits, check your pressure. You still get a reasonable indicator of what the temperature increase or decrease was by looking at pressure, because you have a few minutes before anything's really going to change. Surface temperature is very, very tough to change.
And you actually just described why I do all the cooking in our family too. Hi, honey, if you're watching.
This is an infrared shot of a tire that's been warmed by a tire warmer. And of course, we like to show that, you know, how nice and even it's going to be. And we're sitting here for convenience checking with an infrared gun. And checking with an infrared gun in this situation, it's okay. We're checking the tire warmer and its performance and what we're doing.
We're not getting a fully accurate picture of what the structure of that tire is doing.
Right. If we were going to try to come off the track in a race situation, you'd really want to be using a probe type, something that's going to poke into the tire. Every tire guy in the world uses this. You'll never see a tire guy use an infrared. They'll always use a probe because of the fact that A, if you did it after 30 seconds or 60 seconds, you're going to get a different number with an infrared. The heat is just coming off the surface too fast, and the number can be inaccurate. When you poke it in a few millimeters, you get a more accurate number, and you get more of a carcass number. That's really the right way to do it.
So, and somebody just confirmed that, and they're very excited that they were right about something. So that's great. All right, so let's. What am I going to pay for a set of these things?
Okay.
What are my different kind of levels? I'm curious. This is something now, and we should mention this is not something that every sanctioning body is going to approve on race day, but a lot of the techniques and the uses you described to me today are not necessarily race day techniques. They are accurate techniques to better work out your race day strategy. This seems like a fantastic
No, you're
testing
absolutely
tool
right.
and a great conditioning tool.
We have almost every NASCAR team who's not allowed to use them on race day has our warmers, because when they go to a test, they don't want to bother changing
Right.
suspension components while the tire's cool. They want to be able to utilize their track time. They want to be able to send the car back out in the same condition it came in and make the best of that testing day. So it's simply a testing tool. But you know, a lot of the clubs like SCCA and NASA, they will allow tire warmer use. And I think that right now we have some things happening. I don't know if I should say it, but I guess there's something with Pirelli World Challenge. They're talking about it, and we'll see if they do it. But in any case, a set of tire warmers, really, it's really a specialized tool. We've developed this, as I said, we started with only doing tire warmers. Now, the motorsports side of our business is only 25%.
Oh, wow.
We're building stuff for aerospace, pharmaceuticals, the U.S. military, and we do all sorts of different things.
I would imagine the same thing that heats a tire can heat an industrial resin container.
We do.
You know,
We've done things for SpaceX that cure carbon fiber, and the things make 400-degree blankets. Okay, so instead of them buying a fancy oven, they bought fancy blankets, but it's a lot cheaper. So let's take a look at what we're really doing. A set of tire warmers, I would say 99% of what we sell is digital, okay? The digital controllers, I don't know if you guys really had a chance to sort of see them on the screen. Maybe we could, I don't know if you can see them. But the digital controller will show you what the temperature is on the tire, on the display. And then, of course, you're able to just be able to set what temperature you want and change that temperature if we felt like raising it up. This will let you go up to a maximum of 212. To tell you the truth, we can let you go up to 248. We don't usually do that. We want to make sure before we give someone 248 degrees, they really know what they're doing. So most of the time, 212 is enough, and that's programmed into the software. And the reason that we sell 99% digital is because guys are trying to set the hot pressure. So it's an April day on a track that doesn't build that much temperature, and maybe you need to set them at 175. Or maybe it's a July day and you're at a much hotter track that builds more heat due to the nature of the track. Now you want it to be 205. Okay. And because you want to be able to set your hot pressure before you go out, you want to be able to change the temperature. Or you want to save heat cycles. Or maybe you're a guy who races on rain tires. It's very rare. We do make the same product with a single temperature, and we can make it where there's no digital controller at all. But the digital ones are $2,150, $2,150. You get everything included with the thing. You have 4 tire warmers. They're sized for your tires. That's really important. You call me up and tell me exactly what tires you're running, because you can't make it so long that the heated zone would overlap itself. The tire warmer makes a lot of power, makes a lot of temperature, needs to be flat and smooth on the tire. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. We do get a lot of guys that say, oh, I run this tire in this series and this tire in that series. Can we accommodate it? And yeah, if they're close enough, you could make a set of tire warmers that accommodate both. This is an aluminized Kevlar. That is actually an option, but all the stuff we do is DuPont. This is a DuPont Nomex, which is really the standard in high temperature fabrics. It's used for firefighters, military, car racing suits are obviously made out of Nomex, right?
Yeah.
And we have a Nomex insulation inside, a felted Nomex. And of course, we've got a heating element that's a silicone insulated heating element that we get custom made for us. We have a slew of them depending on the size and voltage. Because to tell you the truth, probably about half of our car racing warmers go overseas. They go to Europe, they go to Australia, they go to Asia.
And so two grand a set, 2,100.
Yep.
That's one set of tires on this car basically. If I'm getting the additional wear where I'm buying one less set of tires every season or every season and a half, they actually pay for themselves fairly quickly.
You know, the tough thing about the tire warmers, to be really honest, it's kind of like, feels like maybe you're selling snake oil or black magic. You have to try it to believe it, number one. You don't have to be the guy setting the track record to notice the difference when the tire's hot. But the longevity of the tire really is a big deal. It lasts a lot longer, for sure. We had the Toyota Atlantic Series was won by Pacific Motorsports, and Tyler Tavidak wrote me a wonderful email saying they were given a certain amount of tires for the season, for practice and for the races.
Oh, wow.
They were limited to how many tires they had for the season. And he used our warmers all throughout practices and all throughout his testing. Couldn't use them on the races, but he was able to be more aggressive with his usage. He won the championship and wrote us a nice letter saying that we were a big part of why they won. and he made his tires last longer. Now, meaning before the lap times fall off. We're not talking until the rubber's gone.
Yeah.
Before we see a fall off in performance.
But from what I've seen, just anecdotally, it's both really. You actually do get more usable life from a single
right.
tire by properly temperature.
That's all we care about. We care about how many sessions or laps can we do before the performance of the tire falls off.
Awesome. All right, we gotta get out of here. Let me see if we got some good questions about starting pressures and how do you know if you're starting at the right one. And yeah, good answer there. And there's actually Andy Hollis did a fantastic story on finding the right tire pressures in a issue of Grassroots Motorsports, and we'll look that up and we'll throw it up on the website, or we'll put a link to it in the next few days on something. David, thank you very much for coming by. Thanks for sprinting through that Charlotte Airport OJ style without the murder to get here in time to do this. Anything we missed before we shut everything down here? Any final parting words of knowledge to give to us on tire care and properly conditioning our tires?
The truth is that the tire warmer, although we're really proud of the product we build, it's just a tool to manage tires. Understanding these issues of operating temperature, proper hot pressures, understanding the heat cycles, understanding your tires lets you understand how to use the warmers. That's really the key.
Love it. All right. Next week, we're going to have our 2019 Honda Civic Si project car in here. It has actually lived a hard life. It's been to, how many track events has it been to so far, David?
5.
Yeah, so 5 track events. Basically, the week we got it was at the track. So we're actually going to be doing a little bit of a mid-season checkup and seeing how it's holding up, seeing what items are wearing, what items are not, and giving you a little bit of a rundown of the 2019 Civic. That'll be next Wednesday at 9 p.m. So be back here, same time, same place. If you're watching us on YouTube tonight, thank you very much. Over here on Facebook, of course, it's nice seeing everybody. We will be, pretty much the whole crew will be at Daytona International Speedway tomorrow night for Track Night in America. I will be there Friday and Saturday in the Corvette here for time trials, and we will be using our Chill Out Systems cool shirt for the first time, and we'll be using a really cool thing called Race Voice, which is a talking data acquisition system. So it's like being Michael Knight. Your car is talking to you and giving you feedback from your data acquisition system the entire time you're in the car. It's actually James Mason's voice, and it constantly tells you how disappointed he is with you in your poor driving performance. But I'm really looking forward to that. So might have some live check-ins on that. We'll see you next week with the Civic. Thanks very much to the folks who make this show possible. Of course, talking about gang from CRC Industries, crcindustries.com on the web, Coney Shocks, coney-na.com on the web, and Specialty Products Corporation, spcalignment.com on the web. We'll throw all those links up if you need anything from those folks. We hope that you let them know where you found out about it. Thanks very much to David Podolsky from Chicken Hawk. Thanks to Katie over there running the board, David back there doing social media, and Chris behind the camera. We'll be seeing more of Chris in just a couple months when we put a great motor in the Corvette at Chris's shop. Shh, nobody heard that yet. Okay, big secret. The secret's out now. All right, that's it, folks. Good night, everybody. Thanks David, for being here, and we'll see everybody next